This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, great to have you with us on the show today. This half hour being brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 to 15 in Columbus, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford Kia Hyundai, the best of new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee, which is great to have because that, all right, that gives you peace of mind when you buy. Because they have great pre-owned inventory there. Terrific service department, whether it happens to be quick lane inspections, routine, difficult. It is all at our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Waiting for Neal Coolong to jump in here. And as we wait for him, one of the things I am going to talk about is the possibility of the NFL renegotiating its TV contract early. And by doing so, obviously, to up the ante and also make some decisions about where the market is in maybe 2028. As opposed to today. And trying to look ahead to where it might be in the early 2030s. Is it more about streaming? And for the NFL, I think we're taken aback. They were taken aback by the fact that the NBA got more out of ESPN than the NFL did. And there is no comparison between Monday Night Football ratings-wise and anything the NBA has. Even the NBA Finals. The NBA Finals were down 24% this year. There are Monday night games that drew more than the NBA Finals this year. But that's what I find to be interesting. As to whether or not the NFL is going to do this with the idea they can get more money. And the question is going to be, even with streaming services, over-the-air still works because, for example, if you have Hulu or you have Yahoo, whatever it may be, okay, you still get NBC, Fox, CBS on there. I mean, you still get that. And that's where, what I find interesting about all this is even if you go streaming with another outlet, and I also think there's a play in here for an 18th game, but you have to have a new CBA or an addendum to the CBA to do that. They were allegedly going to talk about the 18th game this summer. That's been put on hold. But you know eventually they're going to get it. If they do get it, they'll probably put a second bye week in there. They also would start Labor Day weekend. Right now, which sport owns Labor Day weekend? College football. That means that the NFL would own Labor Day weekend, Thanksgiving, now Christmas, New Year's to a point. They do concede New Year's Day to college football. And if they happen to be playing on New Year's Day, college football gets January 2nd. But they also would have probably an opening round playoff on MLK weekend. And the Super Bowl would be, for all the people who have said, boy, it'd be great to have Monday off after the Super Bowl. Oh, yeah, it'd be great. Guess what? They'd like to do it on President's Day weekend. And, Neal, that's what we're talking about here. Neal Coolong, the incomparable one, nobody better. Our good friend, welcome back, sir.
I don't understand the idea of having the day after the Super Bowl off. That's like the busiest day of the year for me. I wouldn't mind it. I know as a kid I definitely wanted it, so I vote for that. Can we change that? Is that what we're doing?
Well, we're going to do that to a point in this exercise today. Andrew Marchand from The Athletic says that the NFL is mulling over the possibility of opting out of their TV deals as early as 2028, with the idea that they can reset the market. I think all of this began with this simple fact. I don't think a lot of people realize, who does ESPN now pay more money to? The NBA or the NFL? They actually pay more money to the NBA than they do for Monday Night Football with the NFL. I think that irked a few people in the National Football League on Park Avenue. Do you agree with that?
I would say, if anything, it piqued their interest. And the idea that they're opting out to reset the market is probably at the top of their short 10,000-foot level plan over the next 10, 15 years. It would only make sense to do that. They want to drive up the price as much as they can. I'd go back as far as this is the reason why NFL Network still exists. They want to be able to leverage their brand not against themselves but against their partners. Drives up the value because they can always say, well, we want to keep this. We can do all this on our own. We really want this price. You're not arguing against yourself in this. So we have the ability to ratchet up demand, whether it's real or not, because we have all these other avenues that we can explore. It only makes sense from the NFL's perspective to want to reset its own market as much as they can. It's probably why they write in the option date when they do. It's, 10 years, I think, something like that, on a 12, 13, 14, 15-year deal, something like that. It makes sense that that's what they want to do, and a large part of it is probably to evaluate their own research and what they've done with their own platform, their own technological advances, if you want to call it that, their own experimentation, things like Christmas Day on Netflix, to find other partners out there. The idea is to drive up the price overall, which I think is just simple business. They're usually going to want to do that. I wonder where ESPN wants to go with it. I don't think that they would want to lose Monday Night Football, and I would imagine they have something of a plan. They're going to put in a bid. I wouldn't think they're just going to tell the NFL now we're not going to be interested, move on now. But there certainly will be another suitor. The question has been, with ratings declines, with stadium attendance dropping, is the product going to continue to be as big? Now, let's keep in mind, a ratings drop for the NFL is deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean, they're not hurting for popularity, but the decline in this generation seems to be connected with a future trend. Where is it going to go? And if you're ESPN, if you're signing on for 15 years and giving another 10-year out option to the NFL, do you project those numbers being where they are the day that you sign it? Are they going to be higher or are they going to be lower? Mm-hmm. I mean, in a way, you could argue it's got nowhere to go but down, but we're talking, this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar deal again, 2-3 times what it was, just with the value increasing the way it does. I wonder how much the NFL wants to put into it and for how long it wants to put into it. They just put a lot into the NBA, and they largely own the NBA now. So it makes one wonder how much of the NFL or how much will ESPN allow the NFL to dictate what the terms of this deal are going to be. And that your guess is as good as mine. A couple of years left before they're really going to explore it. But I would imagine they're still going to have to buy high if they want to continue it.
Well, I think, first of all, if you're ESPN on a business model, you can't afford not to have the NFL. You have to have it because a big part of this deal, I mean, it's not half or anything like that, but I'd say it's about 20% is the ability, because they sign over the ability to carry every single NFL highlight and have permission to do so through this deal. They can't afford to lose that and all the programming that surrounds it.
No, you're exactly right. The programming surrounding it is where they make the money back. Yeah. Escalating costs that go with that. It's interesting because ESPN can kind of look at NFL Network and laugh the way that they handle it. They've done a pretty poor job from a business and an organizational perspective. But ESPN is still thought to be the worldwide leader. And you're exactly right. I mean, they can't afford not to have it, but where that price is going to land for what they're going to do with it, will the NFL overbid, or more specifically, are they going to try to break it up, diversify their presence as much as they can, considering technological advances? You have streaming services. For me, for what I saw in my own home, watching the game and just everything that I read about it, the Christmas Day Steelers versus Chiefs game that was on Netflix looked fine to me. I thought everything worked great. Obviously, not everybody has Netflix, and it's kind of an experimental thing, but they're going to want to continue that kind of thing. Dip into non-traditional outlets to broadcast whatever games they're going to put on. I mean, they want some type of tentpole, but as you and I have talked about a lot, they still wanted to emphasize streaming within the playoffs just to kind of show that they're serious, so they take the least interesting game and stream it, kind of see how everything works. Technology is only going to continue to advance, so that's another product. It might not fit with what ESPN is doing. It makes no difference if ESPN's streaming it or not. I mean, most people have ESPN anyway. But the point is they're paying for the broadcast of the game so they can have the exclusive rights of the highlights, so they can put it on their show following the game. Right. And from there, it's really a question of how many of the highlights can they prevent going out into social media and being broadcast widely to draw attention away from the post-game show, the halftime show, whatever it is. That's a tough thing to control. I shouldn't admit this, but I can tell you 15 different ways to get around that. It's not the hardest thing in the world to do. They're going to continue to fight that battle, though, and to the level they're successful, I guess it kind of remains up to them. But ESPN has to be looking at as this is our everything. You need to help us with this. You guys can't put out a bunch of this stuff on your own. We need to have it for our shows. And therein you get the jockeying back and forth of kind of the dollar incentivized partnership that ESPN and the NFL have. And I wonder what those conversations are going to be. Because to me, it's probably, I mean, obviously it's always about the bottom line dollar, but I really think it's how it's going to be executed now. What other outlets are they going to use? What technology is going to be included in this? How the NFL wants to diversify their product across different platforms, which nowadays I think is the only smart thing for them to do. And I'm not sure ESPN has either the interest or the ability where they sit to really get into that market. I don't know what they have to gain for it, but the core of their media package, I would imagine, will continue to be ESPN.
All right, so there's another part, too, is that, number one, they'll have to do an addendum to the CBA to get the 18th game, and I know they were supposed to talk this summer about it, but that's being pushed back at least 6 months. But if they get the 18th game, in all likelihood, that means, I'd say, 2 buys as a concession, not just one. Labor Day, which is college football's weekend, they'll take over that. They'll have Thanksgiving. They'll have Christmas. New Year's weekend, even though they give college football New Year's Day or January 2nd, depending on what day of the week it falls on. Then a playoff game on MLK weekend. And then President's Day weekend, voila, while you and I are working on that Monday, a lot of people will get that day off. It just seems like this is Patton's Third Army and just dominating and sweeping their way through southern France.
Yeah, right before they start hitting soldiers across the head.
Well,
that's
you know,
a really good point.
I didn't say it was a perfect Army.
That works. I didn't think of that presidency. You're right. I wonder if they wouldn't align it quietly for that reason. I certainly think a lot of people would enjoy it, and that certainly would be a conversation point. But to get the 18th game, this is the way negotiations work, and just for the sake of knowing it in total. It's not as if this conversation has not taken place. It's not as if both sides are not fully ready to get into it. It's a question of who's willing to give what and what they can get on, the remaining 3% when 97% of it is already worked out. What is the NFL going to give the union? That's what the union is interested in. It's less about 18 games. Part of it is going to be a bye, but that's going to be a have to do. Like, if you want to do this, this is the only way it works. What the union's interested in is what can we get back from this? In other words, how much money are we going to get in exchange for this? Because now we got to play even more. And their contracts, keep in mind, are set up per game. They're not set up in a total fashion. In other words, it's structured as you get paid this amount per game. That's how they I don't want to say get around the guarantees, but their structure of payment has always been that way. So if it's 18 games, the players aren't getting more money. They're set for a certain amount per game. This is what they have decided on long in the past, back in the 60s when the NFL really started ramping up. They're going to want a larger allocation overall. How much is going to be probably up to negotiation or what they want to do with that, how the union wants to approach this. Because you've got to keep in mind, too, it's difficult, and it always has been, and this is why they're always at a disadvantage against the NFL. They have to negotiate today for the sake of players 10 years from now, which is really where the impact is going to be. The generation coming up right now, the high school players now who are going to be the first-round picks in 6 years, 5 years, whatever it will be, they're going to be fully used to the idea of playing 17 games. There are still players who are really kind of stuck on a 16-game model. We always knew it was going to go to 18. The question is what the union is going to get from the league in exchange for that. They know that the NFL, the ownership, absolutely wants 18 games. So along with, okay, give us 2 buys. This is how the structure works for us. This is what we want to do. Last time they lopped off a preseason game. Maybe they want to continue with that. Maybe they want to shorten training camp for a week. Things like that make sense. That's what they're going to negotiate. And the efficacy of that is going to depend on where their leadership is and what, in my opinion anyway, how strong a younger and much more outspoken generation of players coming in will respond to this, especially considering you see I probably fair to say better benefits in other professional sports, at least making as much money. I mean, the NBA trades that go on are just insane. They're throwing guys making $16 million a year into these trades. Right. They're going to want to see more money at the top and the middle level, which is, in my opinion, what's been kind of neglected by the union in recent years, giving tangible value increases to mid-level veteran players. I think they're going to want to see an increase in cap dollars as well as an allocation share back to the players. But it's all up to the negotiation. But the NFL really, in my opinion, the only thing they really have left is an 18th game to really go after and negotiate. The rest of them, I think, beyond that, kind of like the last one, I don't think there's all that much of a discussion to be had. I think both sides are kind of, going with the direction of this now. They're used to the idea this is coming up. The players need to sit down and, hammer out something for themselves long term, not just for the current generation.
Right. In other words, one of the things, more money because it's an 18th game, a bye week, an extra bye week in the season because of the rest, one fewer preseason game. Now, at this point, the door's open to talking about the little things. The big things just took care of themselves.
Exactly. And that's usually how these things go. I mean, last time it really wasn't all that contentious of a negotiation, largely because the NFL has all the power. There are 32 owners, but there are 300-some-odd players. When the class structure as massively divided as it is. Your minimum back then, pre the current CBA, the minimum of a mid-level guy was, $775 a year? They gave them a 25% raise, knowing that secures half of the votes because that's, the bulk of the players are going to benefit from that. That's not a substantial loss to the NFL. They know that they have to give a little bit more if they're going to get this. So instead of giving it in total, they're going to say our minimum salary for this level of tenure and below is now going to go up to $1 million, where it is now. That's not. It's a significant increase for a large amount of the voters engaged on the union side. Now, at the time, I forget who it was in this one who was kind of outspoken about it, but in the past, Aaron Rodgers cautioned against it, J.J. Watt. These are guys that were making top-of-market dollars. It makes sense for them from a career perspective, but the players, contrary to opinion from a lot of the owners, are not stupid. They know they're in the game for 3 years. They want to maximize the amount of money that they can get. If they can get an extension, that's great, but they might be done after 3 years, short of their pension. So they want the most amount of money that they can get while they're able to play. So that negotiation appealed to a large block of voters. That's probably what kind of greased the skids to get it through without much of a battle. This time around, though, unless the NFL wants to try doing that again, raise it to $1.3 million or something, I'm not sure that's going to be as easy of a conversation without getting into rev share, which I'm trying to remember what it is off the top of my head. I think it's like 50.3%
something,
to the players.
Yeah.
Right now, you give them another 0.1 or 0.2 of a point increase, which would increase the salary cap overall, which is how they kind of measure the money that's being spent. Maybe create a 1 year salary floor. That's something I know the union has wanted in the past and naturally would. Right now, it's a rolling 3 year period, which makes it a little bit easier to kind of not spend for a year to load up in subsequent seasons. They have options. My guess would be that the players are going to want something a bit more high level than they've gotten in the past. And they've also known that 17 games really was the temporary compromise. They've known that they're getting to 18 at some point. They've always increased it by 2, and that makes sense, a home and an away game. So with that, too, I don't know, maybe internationals on the table, something they can discuss with that.
Right.
A lot of different options that they have, knowing that, this is inevitable. Let's get the most we can get out of it.
Yeah. In fact, I think they want to go up to 14, then to 16 internationals. That's part of it. Neal, as always, a pleasure. We will talk, believe it or not, in 2 weeks. I am off next week.
2 weeks is good. You enjoy your time off.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, guys. We'll see you.
The great Neal Coolong, brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. The News Radio 1070 WKOK.
There's something to be said about a sale with a handshake, a service technician who really knows what he's doing. They can explain it in English what the problem is. There's nothing better than having that friend you can trust in the area. That's Sunbury Motors, where you get selection, knowledgeable salespeople, and prices that fit your budget, and more important, that friend you can trust. Welcome to Sunbury Motors, Kia, Ford, and Hyundai. You can shop other dealers and compare prices, but at Sunbury Motors, you get their lowest price promise. They research the current used vehicle market and guarantee their used car prices are the lowest. If you find a lower price, Sunbury Motors will beat it. 3 dealers all in one. See their full new and pre-owned inventory at sunburymotors.com. Pick out a vehicle you like and schedule your test drive online. Follow them on Facebook. Sunbury Motors Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.